All right, welcome back to another episode of the Construction Hall of Fame podcast. Today, I am super excited for this episode. We're joined by Aaron Witt, who's the CEO at BuildWitt. Thanks so much for joining me today, Aaron.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Pleasure. Well, hey, you have created a super positive brand for yourself. I mean, I see you all over the place on social media. Obviously, you support the dirt world. And so I would love it if for anyone who maybe doesn't know you or just gives people a refresher, would you mind sharing some context as to who you are and your path up to how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, I'm a kid who loves bulldozers. I've always loved bulldozers, but didn't grow up around them. I loved them from afar. My father was a tax lawyer, grew up in a wealthy area, Scottsdale, Arizona. Everybody's pretty familiar with it. Very, very far from anything blue collar whatsoever. But in high school, had the opportunity to get my ass kicked in Montana, started to work hard, and that sobered me up to reality. So I was evaluating my life. What do I want to do? I better choose something that is exciting. I love a construction. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the military. I don't know. I was going down all these options, and this construction project popped up in my neighborhood one day, almost seemingly overnight. And it was big concrete pipe and this big excavator and this forklift and all this stuff started happening. It was just crazy. And I would go there after school and would watch. I was glued to whatever was happening right in front of me. So I thought, why don't I call this company up, ask to meet with whoever owns it? It was Pearson Construction Corporation. I called and asked for Mr. Pearson. I sat down with Mr. Pearson in high school and I asked him, how'd you start a company? What'd you study in college? And can I have a job? And after asking him a few times over a few months, he said, finally, all right, you can start as a laborer. So 18 years old, right out of high school, I start as a construction worker, as a laborer. And I absolutely loved it. It was miserable. It was summer, Phoenix, Arizona, but I knew that, yep, this is where I want to be. This is the world I want to be in. I just need to find my place. So I go to school for construction engineering. I go to work for 5 different construction companies while I'm in school. I graduate, go to work in road building in Texas. And as I graduate, I wanted to build my online brand because I knew that would be valuable, for whatever I wanted to do in the future. It was really a selfish endeavor. And I evaluated my life. What's the unique story I have to tell? And it was, I'm a young engineer. I love bulldozers. I love construction. I'm learning a bunch of stuff. So why don't I start just talking about it on social media? So I do. It starts to really take off. I do a brief stint at a construction software company that finds me because of my social media presence. But ultimately, after 8 months in the real world, post-graduation, I say, I'm going to go tell stories on my own. So I quit my job, move in with my parents, start driving around the United States, going to anywhere that'll have me to take pictures, which was very, very few construction mining operations at the time. And I would just tell stories. My first thesis was, hey, if we have a workforce problem, telling our story will probably help because people don't know we exist. So step one, let's just talk about what we do. It's pretty low-hanging fruit, but we hadn't really done it as an industry until then. So I started doing that. It started to grow. Companies asked for websites and videos, and we ended up with a media company and a marketing business focused exclusively on what we call the dirt world. And that's infrastructure. That's pipelines, that's roads, bridges, aggregate, natural resources, anything that interacts with the earth, kind of on that horizontal plane is where we are. Once you get into buildings, that's where we stop. And that was great. But 2 years ago, we asked ourselves, how do we go bigger? How do we go grow our influence even more? How do we touch more of the industry? And storytelling is a huge piece, but it's not the silver bullet. There is no magic to this. There's no easy button. So we had to go do other stuff. And that's when training and development came into the picture. So we took our access to the industry. We took our access to industry experts, our ability to produce content, our ability to distribute content, combined all of that, built a training platform from scratch specifically for the dirt world, and then populated it with now over 1,000 training videos. So we are now a software company and also still marketing and media.
Very interesting. So I'm curious, How are you able to package these 1,000+ videos that you have now and make them applicable for each company who will come into your training platform? Because companies have different procedures, different types of machinery they use. How have you found a way to make that more of like a blanket training, or is some of it custom?
Yeah, it's a good question. The first thing is most companies aren't all that different. I get to see a lot of the industry, and filling a truck with an excavator in Florida is pretty similar to Maine and pretty similar to the Midwest, pretty similar to Arizona. There are nuances, but that's not what's holding people up. That's not what's driving new people out of the industry right when they get here. It's the basics. And so the basics are really the basics for anybody. The basics on safety, the basics on paving, the basics on equipment operation. That's where we're focused first and foremost, is how do we address the basics? And then not only is it a skills-based problem, but it's also just a life-based problem. So how do we teach people about how to lead? We have a lot of managers, but they haven't ever learned how to lead. So how do we, maybe someone's been in the industry for 30 years. Maybe I can teach them something about leadership. And not me. I don't know anything about leadership, but maybe I can go get a Navy SEAL commander to talk leadership, for example. Maybe we can talk financial health. Maybe we can get into mental health, physical health. We can get into these things that apply to everybody. And then contractors have the ability to go put their own content on the platform as well, so that, yes, every company is a little different. I paint with a broad brush. So that where they are different, they can go produce their own content, or we can do custom content or whatever it is. But the basics are where everybody's hurting right now. And that's where we went after first. And leadership is leadership, no matter where you're at.
I definitely second that. And it's interesting because I work with a couple of top 100 E&R contractors. I work with a lot of small to medium-sized contractors. And I personally found that some people at the top, they do a good job of training and development. Some people put a very intentional focus on it. I believe there's always room for improvement. But a big majority of the small to medium contractors I work with, there's so much room for growth. It's just they haven't had the system to put in place something like this. And it hasn't been as big of a focus. They're a lot of times so busy executing work that the training part is like, we want people who are plug and play, you hear a lot of the time, right? But I talked to other people, like I had someone on my podcast a week and a half ago, and he basically said, my job is to turn B and C players into A players. So how does that come without a focus on training and development, right? So it sounds like you're appealing to, yes, people at the top of the game who are the biggest, contractors in the United States potentially, by helping them add on to what they're already doing well. And you're also helping people create a division of training within their company that might not even really exist, to help them appeal to more types of talent, train and develop more types of talent, to open up the scope of who they can recruit, who they can lead, and also become better as leaders. It sounds like that's pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah, and it's not it's not a nice to have. It's this is what contractors are going or must do to compete into the future. You have a big workforce problem today. ABC said we need to just meet demand this year, approximately 550,000 people in the industry, additional. And we don't know where those people are. I have no idea. I haven't met somebody with, yep, here's the plan. And not only that, but then in the next 8 years, NCCER says, well, over 40% of the workforce is going to retire. So we have this massive problem, and it's either demand for infrastructure goes down, or we have to get both more productive and find more people. It has to happen. And I don't see demand going down anytime soon. Even if the market goes down, we're bringing manufacturing back to the United States in the biggest push in decades since we put it offshore post World War II industrialization. There's uncertainty in global markets, so we're trying to pull more in-house. There's the degrading state of our current infrastructure. So even if we don't want to go build new roads and bridges, they're going to start failing. We're going to have to. There's this need that is going to exist regardless. We have to figure this out. And what's happened is companies haven't had to think about this before because they've always had these young people coming into the industry. There was this big working class, this big baby boomer class. Most of them grew up in rural type scenarios, so they were used to working. They go into construction because it's what their dad did, their uncle did, their grandpa did. It's familiar. But now those people are gone because we have urbanized. So everybody's now been raised in cities, and now our population is aged. We have more, for the first time in the mid 2030s, we're going to have more old people than we do young people for the first time in our nation's history. So we have less young people, and we have really few young people that have ever worked. And I think hard work is a skill. I don't think it's this natural trait. I think it's something that is learned, because I had to learn it. I didn't have it before. I didn't know how to work hard before I was 14, 15 years old. I got put in a situation that taught me really quickly. And then, oh, okay, I get it. And so we are bringing people into our industry that have never been here before, that don't know the basics, that were like me. At 18 years old, didn't know how to use a ratchet strap. And instead of saying, you idiot, you don't know how to use a ratchet strap, we need to say, oh, well, let me think how to teach how to use a ratchet, because I didn't even have to learn. I learned when I was 4 years old. Oh, here's how you do it. Oh, you didn't get it the first time? All right, let's work through it again. I must not have explained it all that well. And then they get it. Hey, damn good job. Nice work. And so now you're bringing people up, because we now have everybody talks attraction, but if you look at retention, over 60% turnover in the demographic below 24 years old, because they get on job sites for the first time, they get yelled at, they get abused, and they're like, I can just go to Amazon, work inside, and not get abused. So I'm just going to go do that, and I don't blame them. So anyway, it's a whole can of worms.
Most definitely. You're solving so many problems of what you do. I think it's interesting to think about what the barrier to entry needs to be for certain companies to recruit the type of people they want, whether it be, hey, we need to be very top heavy and recruit top heavy leaders, or people who are seasoned and experienced. There's only so many of those people. So if we're really going to chip away at this talent shortage, it seems like a big glaring issue that you're doing actually a solid dent in actually solving by helping these people train and develop, is finding people who don't have that college level education, maybe even bringing them up through the trades, finding ways to educate them, develop them, and help them build the skill sets so that, let's just say, I'm thinking about tech, for example. You see these advertisements like, oh, you can become a coder in 16 weeks if you just take this 16-week boot camp on how to code and develop. People are saying, hey, I need this 4-year, maybe even more than that type of degree to get into the construction space. Whereas if you take someone, train them and develop them with lower barrier to entry, such as college, with more training, more development, you're doing a solid job of solving that right there.
That's it. And, kids go to college because there's a pathway. There's a very clear pathway. I know how to apply. I know where to live. I know how to go get as much debt as you tell me to go get. It's all prescribed for me. Construction industry, though, oh, you want a job in construction. You have no experience. Good luck. I don't know. I have no idea. If you're in a strong union environment, okay, yeah, go get an apprenticeship. But even getting into those programs right now, I hear from kids all the time, it's very difficult. And for what reason? I don't know. But other than that, if you're in Middle Tennessee, for example, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. And that to me is not acceptable as an industry that is struggling for workforce, and this is the tip of the iceberg, and is absolutely essential to everyday life. So that's why we're trying to do our part. I don't make my money by talking like this. I don't make my money by speaking and by social. Like, that's not how I make my money. I'm making my money. Well, I haven't made my money yet. I don't make very much, but I'm planning to make my money by building a business that provides tools and solutions to address the biggest issue facing the industry right now. And that is starting with people, developing people, telling stories, increasing their sense of pride, caring for them. It's simple, but hard stuff.
Most definitely. I'm kind of going more on that to piggyback on what the process has been building BuildWitt. What has it been like to scale BuildWitt so far up to today? I mean, you've obviously grown fast in the years you've been in business. What's that process look like?
Chaos, just total chaos. It's a lot of fun. We went. The first year was really just me. Then the second year was about 5 of us. And third year was about 20, and then fourth and fifth years, it was, I guess I think we're 5 years down now. It was huge. So we were at about 75 full time, probably another 50 or so part time. And we didn't anticipate to grow like this, but because we've discovered all of these problems the industry has, and we think we have solutions to offer them, we've grown because we've had to. It's gone pretty well, or at least it went pretty well initially because we had a very strong online brand, so we could recruit people very effectively. We spent a lot of time and energy on our recruiting process and our hiring process. We spent a lot of time and energy on our mission and values, on onboarding. But when we doubled and tripled last year, you can't keep up with that. Things break. There's no way to do it that won't prevent big things from breaking. And we broke a lot of stuff last year, but I'm also happy we did it because we learned a lot of lessons. And here we are this year, better than ever before. But because we invested so much in the design of our business, our culture, and focused so much on people, it hasn't been nearly as chaotic as I guess it could have been.
Sure. It's kind of like sports. It's like in sports, you learn from failure a lot of the time. You learn from failing, going back to the drawing board, finding challenges, and treating a challenge is only a way to get better. And it sounds like that's what you're doing by breaking things, is you're just finding ways to get better, pushing things to the limit, seeing what breaks, then finding solutions to that, and then continuing to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, that's the only way to do it. And especially when you're on a path, if I wanted to be a contractor, I wanted to be a civil construction company. It's not easy by any means. I'm glad I'm not a civil construction company because, it's a hard business. But I at least have others I can look at to be like, okay, so that's how you estimate. That's how you buy and sell equipment and figure out utilization. And okay, all right, I get it. I get it. But with what we're doing, we have there's no path. There's no roadmap. There's no next step. The only way to figure out what the next step is take, just take the first step and then the next step, the next step, the next step. It's just one step at a time. And the bigger picture reveals itself as you go further and further down the path. But as you go down the path, you get, kicked in the nuts a bunch and people try to shove you off, wrestle you off, and there's boogeymen everywhere. But you just have to stay on it because that's part of the process. And that's what we've struggled with. That's why a lot of people have been frustrated with us, because it's like, you're always changing. It's like, yeah, we are always changing because we're trying to solve a problem that hasn't been solved before. So this is the only way we're going to be able to do it. And it's frustrating for me because I have to explain that a lot, but I also understand it's like, I need to explain that because that's part of the process.
Definitely. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're pioneering within your niche. Like we talked about before, there aren't 100 dirt world companies who focus specifically on marketing, training, development, who've been building what you're building. So it is kind of like you're building your own blueprint at the end of the day. And so, I mean, you're going to have challenges at the end of the day. You'll face these type of things, but at the end of the day, you're also solving a huge problem, multiple huge problems. So as you continue to learn, I mean, as they say, there's riches in the niches. And if you can continue to help companies solve these problems, sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think I wrote on social media this morning, it was like officially our 5-year anniversary this week. And, I wrote, this is the appetizer. Like we've built a solid foundation. We've spotted some opportunity, but what's ahead of us is far greater than what we've been able to do so far. And if we're able to do this, it's going to be a big deal.
And your domain expertise, for me, it seems to be obvious that that's a driver in how you've become what you've become in a quick period of time. And when we talked before, it's like you mentioned how important actually going to job sites are and getting to know these people at the ground level. But what would you say? How has that had an impact on your business? Going out, meeting these people in the trenches, actually seeing from a consistent perspective what the day-to-day really looks like for these people?
It's everything. I don't understand how somebody can go, especially build a technology provider for this industry without spending all of their time on job sites. I don't understand how it's even possible. It would still, I don't know, the business wouldn't exist had I not spent all of the time I have on job sites. That's all I have is I don't have all of this industry experience I can draw from. I don't have intelligence really. All I have is, well, I'm dumb enough to keep traveling on the airline system, you know, being a customer of the airline system and going out to these job sites and mines across the United States and now around the world. And it's not like these, you know, I go out to this one site and there's like this eureka moment. But after years and years of doing it, visiting thousands of sites at this point, you start to have this data set that no one else has. And you can then use that and apply that in other ways you could have never imagined before. And there's only one way to get that data set. It's to do the work. It's to actually go out there and spend that time. So that data set is essentially the moat I've created around myself and our business, because I know that regardless of what money you have, or, okay, great, you've hired a bunch of experienced people in the industry. Great, they're experienced in one market. Great, they have 25 years experience at one company. Like, okay, yeah, they can build bridges like no tomorrow in one market, but they don't understand how to build bridges in Florida, you know, with groundwater, for example, if they've been just building bridges in Arizona. So even if you go hire everybody with industry experience, you still don't have the level of understanding at a high level that we have, because we see so much variety and interact with all of these people at a really intimate level. Everybody says, oh, you should go talk to people that aren't executives. It's like, that's all I do, dude. I go out into the field. I talk to operators, laborers, surveyors, mechanics. I talk to everybody out there. That's all I do. And only then can you start to see the bigger picture. So I initially started just telling stories. There was no big picture beyond that. It was just, let's just tell stories. And as I started to see more and more data, it was, oh, okay, so there's an opportunity for a business that tells the stories of construction and mining companies. That's fantastic. And then the software conversation came up because we were on that path. It wasn't day one, okay, I'm going to do this and then software later. I never wanted software. I didn't want training. I didn't plan for any of this. It's just because we've seen the industry, we've heard from all of these people, and we've looked around and said, well, no one else is doing this. Why don't we give this a shot? And we have the data set. We're willing to fail. Here we are.
One big takeaway I had from what you just said is you're giving companies the ability to scale in a way that they just wouldn't have even been able to consider previous. For example, if they're working on projects in Arizona and then they want to take it over to Florida, the people are well trained in the Arizona market, but they're not trained in the Florida market. That could be super costly. If they take on a project in Florida, they don't know what they don't know, and then they get hit with all these challenges and setbacks and possibly unprofitable projects due to just lack of knowledge. But because of the fact that you're providing them with training from so many different perspectives, number one, they can help educate their current team on what might need to be, achieved to actually go in and successfully execute a project in a new market, but also the ability to go out and attract people in new markets, help train them up, find different value props to attract new types of people in different areas. So it sounds like a big win-win there.
Our value in the industry, our role to play, we are really just glue. We are just filling in all of the gaps between contractors and suppliers and manufacturers and DOTs and associations, all of these stakeholders in the industry. They're all trying to go and do something about this workforce challenge in their own way. But that's one of the core problems is our industry is very fragmented. So you can't go create significant change if everybody's trying to do it on their own. You only create significant change when everybody is in one unified front. That's what we're able to do, is we're building all of these things. We're doing everything we do is focused on this people problem, but is really designed to just bind everybody together in one entity, the dirt world, for the first time. Because once we do that, now we're a team. Now we can actually go head to head with other industries. Now we can actually go effectively recruit millions of people. Now we can actually go elevate the entirety of the industry. So that's all we are. We're just glue between everybody.
I love the fact that you say recruit millions of people, because at the end of the day, you're thinking bigger than the existing problem. You're thinking, how do we outpace the problem? You're not thinking, how do we just come up and get enough to get the job done? You're thinking a lot bigger than that. And at the end of the day, it sounds like the problems you solve could definitely lead to that. And like you say, we never know. We're not Nostradamus. We can't predict the future, but all we can do is chip away with our best intention, with our best knowledge of what can actually solve these problems to continue daily taking a 1% better approach. And there's no question, it sounds like you're doing that.
Yeah. I like our goal is our mission is not to solve the industry's people challenge, because there's a lot of other problems. There's a lot of other stuff we can focus on. But number one, the tiger in the room is this workforce thing, is this aging demographic. So let's attack this first. Let's figure this out. But once we figure this out, there's a lot of other stuff we can focus on. We can go build far more effectively than we're building today. We can be a lot smarter about how we implement technology, use materials, all sorts of amazing things we can do in this industry. But first and foremost, we have to figure out the people equation. So there's always room for improvement. There'll always be a way for our business to serve the industry. But first and foremost, let's not just get to a point where it's like, oh, we can breathe again. I don't want to talk about this anymore because we're good to go. We're good to go. Let's go on to the next one. That's the goal in the next decade.
Love it. And so we talked about it a bit, good amount so far. What would you say are some of the most common challenges you see among dirt world companies when it comes to actually attracting and retaining great people?
First, I want to focus on retaining because, the average turnover in our industry is, it ranges based on area, seasonality, whatever it is, but it's usually like 25 to 40%, which that's brutal. That is gnarly. I don't know how you run a company at 40% if you have 40% turnover. That's so brutal. That is so many people, such a large percentage of your workforce turning over every year. And so if you focus there by, again, focusing on your existing workforce, how do I remind my existing workforce what they do matters? How can I care for them differently? It's not that I don't care for them, but what I'm doing right now isn't probably working. So I need to care differently. And that's okay. That's okay. We don't build like we did 50 years ago for a reason, because we've improved as an industry. So we need to educate people, treat people in a different way, because this is a different generation, a different time. We live in a different world than we did just 10 years ago. So how do I invest in my people? How do I leverage technology to be more effective, be more productive? I would start there. If companies started on, let's focus internally first. Let's define what makes us us. What do we value? What's our higher purpose? How do we care for our people? Are we paying our people enough? Do we have good enough benefits? Man, we've had a lot of people leave because there's no flexibility. Is there a way we could create some sense of flexibility? Not a lot, but maybe there's something we can do to give people a little bit more flexibility. How do we help our people be healthier, for example? There's a lot of questions. Mental health, suicide. 5 times more people die by suicide than they do safety accidents. I go on to every single job site. You're hit over the head with the safety baseball bat. You better be safe. But I don't hear one conversation about, how are you today? Hey, I heard your wife's in the hospital. How's that going? Like, there's none of that. It doesn't take a lot of money and time to even do this. It's, man, I'm an executive and I've been in the office for like the past 6 weeks. That's a problem. How do I at least get out into the field once a week? And even if it's, I know I have a lot to do in the office, but I need to get out and just shake my people's hands and say, how you doing? And say, I care about you. I'm proud of you. Thank you. So I would start there first, because if you do that, the attract part will take care of itself. It will take care of itself. So I don't think it's really an attraction problem. I think that is convenient. That is saying, oh, it's not my problem. It's their problem. That's shirking responsibility, saying it's nope, not on me. We're good to go. They should want to work for me. And instead, it's looking ourselves in the mirror and saying, all right, what can I do to solve this? What can I do differently? And if you do that, I've seen companies do this, like a hoopla grading. They were at 250 people. Brian McManus, their president, their owner, one day says, this isn't fun anymore. This isn't fun. We can't hire people. We can't keep people. What do we have to do to change this? And he said, you know what? It starts with me. It starts with me. It starts at the top. And they started that about 5 years ago. Now they're at 750 people. They don't struggle to hire people. They're well known on the East Coast now. They're as successful as ever because they said, you know what? We're going to do this different. Sure, what we've done up to this point has got us here. But if we know this is not going to continue to work, we know that. Everybody knows it. And that first step is ownership. It works. I've seen it work a lot of times over at this point.
Mm-hmm. It's the topic of how can we create a raving fans culture where people who work for us tell their friends and family about the opportunity. They encourage other people to come work here instead of saying, hey, I think you might want to consider another company, another industry, because I get onto the job site and the first thing I do during the day is get yelled at. I don't get supported. I'm not told how great I am or what a great job I'm doing, or I don't have as much constructive feedback with people. It's more just like, hey, get your job done. If you're not getting your job done, then you're not really of use to me right now. I think some companies I see do this really well. And those are the people who have the least problem attracting talent. And then some people are completely missing the ball and wondering why their turnover rate on average is 1 year to 2 years employee tenure in their company. And it's like, hey, that's a really expensive problem. You might want to consider, instead of trying to find external ways to keep bringing in more people who are going to turn over anyways based on stats, it's like, how can we change internally to make it a place where people love to be?
Yes. Yeah. And if you ask your workforce, Randy talks a lot about this at our business. Would you recommend this industry to your kids? Would you be happy if your kids got into this industry? And if everybody doesn't raise their hand, that's a problem. There you go. There's your problem right there. So how can you get more hands raised? How can you make a difference so that your people are saying, yeah, I would be proud if my son or daughter got into construction? Because right now, a lot of people wouldn't raise their hand. That's messed up. That sucks. That makes me sad. And we have a lot of work to do in that regard, but it's all possible. A lot of it doesn't require a lot of money. If we do this, we're going to make more money. We're going to be far more profitable. We're going to have even more to invest in our people. It's all this self-fulfilling, it's this virtuous cycle. So it works. I've seen it work a lot of times over. What do I know? But that's where I would be looking.
Yep. And you also clearly do a lot of work with marketing, right? And that includes like social presence, branding, all that good stuff. Where have you seen companies miss the ball when it comes to branding and social presence, and to where when they made some tweaks to these things, it actually increased their, obviously it's not solving the root issue of treating people well and all these good things, but have you noticed a shift in how companies can attract or retain people based on how they brand themselves and their marketing presence and things like that?
Yeah, it's a big deal. The biggest thing that they do that I see is wrong is they don't do it. Like, that's where I would start. There's a staggering number of companies in this industry that still does not believe in social media. Or they do have, oh yeah, we have a social presence. You go on there and it's like, happy St. Patrick's Day. It's like, no one cares. No one cares. This doesn't tell me anything about your business. You're a quarry, a crushed rock business. And I have to scroll like 9 posts to find something about crushed rock. That's your core business. Why are you making me work so hard here? And no wonder you have 128 followers, because no one cares. They just want to see what you do. And when you tell that story, everybody looks at it again from that external standpoint. And this is where I made a mistake early on was, I use social media because it's going to attract people to your business. That's what people want to hear. But what it does first and foremost is it makes your existing workforce feel proud about what they do. They're so excited to finally see someone highlighting what they do. They're proud. And yet this industry is hidden under a rock. And it hurts the people in the industry. I went up to Fort McMurray, the oil sands region, the second time this winter in January. And it was amazing how many people thanked us for coming up there, because all that they see is their demonization by the environmental groups and the news groups and Leonardo DiCaprio. And they know what they do is important. They know how valuable it is. But no one tells that story because everybody's just retreated, hidden under a rock. And now, to their credit of the mining companies, they're like, yeah, we should tell the story of our people, our equipment, what we actually do, because that matters. And that matters to, first and foremost, our people. And then not even your people. Maybe you say, well, our people aren't on social media. Our people don't even have phones. Oh, okay. Well, do your people have children? Yes. Okay. Have you seen a single child without a phone? That's, of phone age, over the age of 10 or whatever it is nowadays? No, they all have phones. Yeah, they do. They're all there. And so some of the coolest messages, the dozer operator saying, man, this is awesome. That's one thing. But their wife or their spouse writing in saying, thank you for what you do. This means so much to my husband or wife. And we didn't even know what they did at work. We haven't even seen anything like this before. Or their kids saying, yeah, that's my mom. That's my dad. Like, what does that do for pride? What does that do for retention? What does that do for inspiring the next generation? And all of that right now is, for the most part, just left right on the table. So I think that's the biggest issue, is companies just don't tell their story. Like, I could go get into all the little tricks and this and that, but I don't like to do it because it just obfuscates. Don't hire me. Like, don't hire us. It's not complicated. Go do it on your own, but just please do it. Please just do it, because until everybody does it, the problem will persist.
It's the ripple effect you're talking about. It's like not only affecting the people who are on the sites, it's affecting everybody around them. And it seems like if more people were to believe in what they're doing is actually something worth talking about, it's like maybe they just think that posting about what their company does for work, maybe they just don't think it's interesting for the community. But how can we make it interesting for the community? And how can we make it something where we know we're appealing to the right people and we're showing our people off for what they do? It's all perception, right? Like, reality is a lot of times just based on perception.
But that's the thing. That's why I get so frustrated. It's like, well, how do we make it? It's already interesting. It's already demolition or digging or whatever. It's already cool. This isn't legaldocuments.com. We're not having to make LLCs look sexy to 16-year-olds. We're talking about equipment. We're talking about building stuff. We're talking about serving humanity. Like, if you flush the toilet, dirt world. You turn the lights on, dirt world. Drive somewhere, dirt world. Go into a building, dirt world. You can't do anything without it. So it's cool enough. Like, we don't need to overthink it. We, again, just need to explain it. It's like, great. Okay. Yeah. You've been on the back of a paver your whole life. You understand how roads are built. Most people, 99 point something % of people that drive on roads could not tell me how a road is built. So yeah, it's mundane to you. Yeah, it's obvious to you because you live it every day, but it's not obvious to a majority of society.
Totally. 100%. And so going back to, the younger generations and how we can appeal to them and how we can support them, what have you found to be some ways that companies can improve their training process to appeal to people of the younger generations who might have different styles of learning? Like, some people like audio, some people like video, some people learn in different types of manners. What have you found to be some ways to level up the training to appeal to these type of people?
I would really ask yourself, what do we need to train on? Because it's probably the basics. Like, if I looked at our top 10 most watched lessons on our platform, the cool thing about software is you get data and you can start learning from the data. So one of the top 10 lessons, a lot of it's like safety and this and that. Like, yeah, that's what I would have expected. But one of them was how to assemble a hard hat. And if you've ever assembled a hard hat for the first time, there's no way you figured it out on your own. If you did, it took you a little bit. You feel like an idiot. You're like, okay, all right, it's my first day on the job. I'm trying to not look like a total moron, a total liability. And yet I can't do something as simple as assemble my damn hard hat. And I better figure this out because, oh goodness, if I have to go ask someone to help me assemble my hard hat, oh, this is terrible. I feel terrible. Like minute 5 of being there. And we've offered them the ability to, you can actually learn how to assemble a hard hat without feeling like an idiot, without having to admit you don't know it. But everybody's been there. So I would start with, how do I teach the basics more effectively? How do I teach the basics? And what are the basics? What do we need to teach on? Some of this stuff I didn't have to learn because, again, I grew up around it. I just absorbed it through osmosis. It was part of my childhood, part of my upbringing. So I've taken that knowledge base for granted. But somebody coming in without that knowledge base, like me, who grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, you got to start from the beginning. So it's a more caring approach. It's a more patient approach. It's not that kids don't want to work. It's that they don't want wrenches thrown at them. They don't want to be abused. They have more options than ever before. We're acting like we're victims here. Oh, they're going to college. They're going all these other. Yeah. Okay. And like, that's the reality we're in. So are we just going to play victim until we have no more people and our industry can't support society and society crumbles? Like, what's the alternative here, everybody? Instead, we have to put our egos aside and say, yeah, they learn differently, and that's okay. So I think it's rooted in patience, in basics, in just not skills, but life. You know, if I can go teach a kid something that just it's funny in the worst of ways. I hear a lot of people talk. These kids just don't know how to manage their money. I go pay them all this money in summer, and they come around winter, when everybody's laid off and it's cold, if you're working in Minnesota, for example, and they say, oh, I need more money. I paid you a lot of money. You're assuming that their parents taught them how to manage money. Their parents don't know how to manage money. They don't. School didn't teach them how to manage money. No one's ever taught them how to manage money, how a 401k actually works, how a mortgage actually works, how debt actually works. They don't know how to do anything with money. So if you can do something as simple as teach them how to be more effective with their money, wow. And now, when that dollar raise comes down the road, they're going to think twice because no, this company's making me better overall. I'm not just a cog in the machine here like this company is. I'm better here. So I'm going to stay here.
Holistically, you're helping these people improve. Not just about construction, but it's helping them become a more well-rounded person to live a better life overall. That's huge. Huge. And something I'm curious about is, sometimes there are these coaches. I played sports in college. There were coaches that some people just didn't want to listen to. Some people weren't as receptive to learning from. And there were some teams that were more like, hey, we've always done it this way. I've already learned to do it this way. Common in construction, we've always done it this way. Have you found that there's any ways to help create a culture who's bought in on learning and development versus people who just say, don't need that, not for me type of attitude?
It's cultural change. And again, it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's hard. But I think once you take the first step, there'll be a little bit of resistance, but the organizations, again, it starts at the top. It has to start at the top. And then they'll essentially invest in the people that are hungry, that want to be invested in. And that permeates through the organization. And you are transforming your organization culturally. So there will be people that just don't fit into the new way of doing things. But that's reality. That's evolution. That's how a healthy business should work. It shouldn't just retain 100% of its workforce for 40 straight years. Because if it's a normal size business, if it's a really big business, you can do that because you can move those people around. There's a lot of growth. But if you're a 50, 100 person business, 0% turnover is also not good because you're probably not growing. You're probably not changing as a business. So starts at the top. Start with the lowest hanging fruit. Start with the people that are hungry. The rest of the organization, if you're serious about it, will adapt. They'll either, oh, okay, I should get on this. This is actually pretty cool. I'm going to put my ego aside. Or they're just not going to get out of their own way and they'll eventually have to go elsewhere.
It's like a self-selecting culture that you build. It's like if 99 people are doing something and one person's refusing to do it, they're just not going to fit in. People are going to look at each other and say, this is a sore thumb who is just not a part of the team culture.
Exactly. Well, and that's it. And so, yeah, you design your culture then, if you're serious about it, again, to work those people out. Essentially, it's like your body; it'll reject things that doesn't quite fit if it's healthy.
Yep. And kind of going back to strategy, I mean, some companies are just like up in arms as to like, what do we even do to start attracting new talent, right? Because new talent is part of it and retaining talent is part of it. And I'm with you. Retaining talent is a major component to the puzzle. But have you seen companies, or have you worked with companies to implement anything along the marketing front or just the training front in terms of partnering with trade schools or apprenticeship programs to actually attract new people into the company?
It's so variable. I mean, it varies by region, by state, by city. So kind of, I think, like the first step a lot of companies need to take, regardless of where they're at, to attract people is we, on the marketing front, the very first thing we do typically with companies is mission and values. Who are you? What is important? And why are you in business? Why? Okay, cool. Yeah, you build stuff. So does everybody else. Why are you in business? What's important to you? Then you need to have that defined, again, before you can go attract people, because this next generation they don't just want money. We have, as we've industrialized, created all of these new careers and options that didn't exist before, and all of this wealth that didn't exist before. There's a lot of places where I can go earn a living now. Typically, it was you worked construction because your dad worked construction, because your grandpa worked construction, and that's the job. That's the option. And you just fall in line. But here, we're exposed to all kinds of options every day. You know, here's 100 different options. It's overwhelming. So as a business, if you start with defining that mission of, like C.W. Matthews, the big paving contractor in Georgia, you go to their website and it's, getting Georgia home. They're a road builder. And it's like, oh, to me, as somebody in my 20s, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. That's pretty cool, actually. So everybody, like, they've built just about every damn road in Atlanta, a lot of them. So it's like most people in the state of Georgia have probably benefited from what C.W. Matthews has done. Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. And then when C.W. Matthews goes into high schools to recruit, for example, they can talk about that. And it's not just like, come work for us. We build stuff. Or we have machines. Like, yeah, a lot of people have machines. We get Georgia home. Like, yeah, you want money? Sure, we have money. You want benefits? Yeah, sure, we have benefits. Check. But we have purpose. See all those people going home to their families every day? How do you get home? Yeah, you get home on roads, right? That's what we do, man. You're like, whoa, that's a big impact. And every day when I'm at work, I'm helping someone get home. That's amazing. So that's on the marketing front, at least, that's where we typically start.
And on the flip side of that, it was pretty mind-blowing. So, I don't know, 2 months ago, I had a company I talked to about recruiting. They're like, hey, we need to solve a couple different open positions. And I'm talking to them. I'm like, hey, so would you mind just telling me a little bit more about why you? Like, what is your story? What's your unique value prop to the market? The guy's response is the president of a company. He's literally like, hey, we're the same as everybody else, man. We're the same as everybody else. And I'm like, do you genuinely believe that? How do you think that belief is currently serving you? And why would anyone who's great want to join a team who's the same as everybody else? Like, yeah, sure, you build buildings. That's completely fine. That's good and well. But at the end of the day, you're not just building buildings. How do you treat your people different? How do you support them different? What's different about your team? All these things that could be thought of from how am I different? How do I differentiate myself for people to attract new people into my company? It's like, if you really believe you're the same as everybody else, how do you expect to tackle these types of problems if you're literally just the same as your competitors?
That's it. Yeah, me, somebody in my 20s, I hear that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep looking. Like, if you can't even articulate it, then I don't know, man. I've got a lot of other places to look, and I know I have the power now too. Like the workforce has the power. That's not going away anytime soon. Like we've, as employers, we've gotten away. We have this sense of entitlement because we've always been able to hire people. That's gone. That is gone. That time period, it's out the window. This is here to stay. We can't have that sense of entitlement anymore. We are out to not just recruit and inspire outside people, but keep our existing people inspired as well. Like all of our people at our business, as far as I'm concerned, they're all free agents. They can all go to any company at any time, and they're all sought after. We're high profile. They've learned a lot here. They could go anywhere. And so if I get a ounce of entitlement and say, wow, no, it's BuildWitt. Like we're better than everybody else or whatever it is. And don't continue to hone in on why we're different, why we're special, how they're improving by being here. We'll lose.
Yeah, what's interesting enough, this guy ran an internship program at his company too. And almost every single intern I saw go through this person's company left and went to a competitor at the end of their internship program. So it just goes to show, even if you're investing in an internship program, but you're not going the extra mile to provide a great place to be for your people, you're not solving the problem as well as you could.
That's it.
Most definitely. I kind of want to dive into a topic real quick. It's something we touched on a bit, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. So there are some companies out there who are like, hey, we need a specific type of person with a specific type of skill set, and we only will accept someone who has this exact type of experience. And obviously that will bottleneck a company versus if their competitor says, hey, we'll take someone who has X, Y skill and we'll teach Z skill. How have you seen companies be able to adapt to actually expand the talent pool that they can recruit based on training, development, and some of the things you work to implement?
They've built the infrastructure they need to do it. So this is where the bigger to medium, bigger companies are going, is they have created or are creating the infrastructure to actually make it happen. So like Strack, for example, in Georgia, they are building a training facility. They bought a bunch of brand new equipment, an excavator, a loader, a skid steer, a haul truck, a compactor, and they are bringing people in and training them on what they need them to be. Hoopah has an academy. So they literally have a building and they have simulators and they have onboarding and they have superintendent classes and they have a team in their business, a 20-person team dedicated to developing their people. They've invested in it. And so I think I think every company needs to invest in that. To what extent, that depends on what size company you are, what resources you have at your disposal. So, as a small company, I can get away with a little less because I don't have all of these dynamic skill sets I need to support. It's really kind of a bigger company problem anyway. And all of the big companies, they're going to have to ask themselves, okay, these experienced people, these more advanced positions, they just don't exist anymore. So how do we start creating them internally? And they all say they want, it's funny. Everybody says it's like, would you rather somebody experienced or just the right values? They would always say right values, but that's not reality. It's like, well, people are knocking on your door. They can't get in because you're saying like all your job opportunities say 5 years experience. So your system doesn't align with what you're talking about. It's inconsistent. So I think it starts with, again, the realization that we need to do something, that this is my responsibility, and then the willingness to invest and just starting somewhere and growing it from there. Hoopah didn't start with 20 people. They started with one person and they scaled as they got deeper and deeper into it from there. And I think if every company just gets on the journey, it again will dramatically improve the collective industry.
It's just like similar to what we talked about earlier with the social media and the branding. It's like actually start. Get one foot in the right direction, start with the process, get things underway. And naturally, if you start with a really good training and development program that has one person, and you're able to take in more people from different areas of life to actually come in and grow and develop, then you'll need and you'll have the resources to invest in the second, the third, the 20th person on the team, because you're creating this machine where people can actually come in and develop and grow versus, not putting a focus on that and then it's being stuck with the same problems you've always been stuck with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wish I could give you, oh, it's just a 3-step formula, or, oh, it's just press this button and it's good to go. If anybody says that, they're lying. There isn't a magic potion here, but that is also to a lot of companies, that's what's frustrating about humans is, oh, if it just wasn't for the people, this would be easy. It's like, yeah, but the people are why this whole thing works. Like, that is it. The equipment, okay, anybody. These are common talking points that I hear from owners and contractors all the time. The equipment, anybody can do that. Anybody can do this. It's the people. It's like, yeah, it is the people. So we can look at it like this curse, or we can look at it as our biggest blessing, our biggest asset, our biggest source of potential as an industry, and say, let's double down there. Because sure, we could go after this little productivity gain right here, this little productivity gain here, but you have your biggest potential gain in everything right in front of you, your people. And you just gotta start peeling back the layers, and it will start to create something very, very beautiful.
Most definitely. So as we start wrapping down the show, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what do you think the biggest challenges and opportunities are in the construction industry when it comes to workforce development and training?
I think challenge is the success our industry has enjoyed over the past 40, 50 years. We're running the same play right now. And success experience is oftentimes a liability. It's interesting, if you, historically speaking, win a war, you're probably going to lose the next war because you get fooled into thinking that, okay, that's what works. So you go run that play again and you go get beat. Or if you go win a World Series or a Super Bowl and you go run the same plays the next year, it doesn't work. You can't go win a second Super Bowl running the same play because now everybody knows what plays you're going to run, and they're running those plays too. They know how to defend against it. They know the weak points now. And so I think that's the biggest challenge is the mentality shift, is the success the industry has enjoyed, is currently enjoying. Everybody's making more money than they've ever made before, typically. It's amazing. So that fools you into thinking, well, what we're doing is still working. Let's just keep doing it. It's comfortable. But it's like, woof, like we are just paddling down the stream right now and it's beautiful. The birds are chirping, trees, but I see the waterfall. It's right there. It's right there, everybody. Like, it's right there. Please look up. But no, we're just paddling. This is fantastic. What a beautiful day. So I think that's the biggest challenge. The biggest opportunity is the workforce challenge. I think this is the single greatest opportunity our industry has seen in at least half a century, if not a century. Massive opportunity for a company that gets the people thing. Now, historically, the moat around construction businesses has been their balance sheet. So if I want to go head to head with the big dog, it's going to take me 30 years to build up a balance sheet that big because it's just chipping away at the block. But now I'm almost on a level playing field, even though they have 75 years of history. Because if I can figure out the people thing, they might not be able to figure this out. I can move a lot faster than they can. I'm not encumbered by the decades of success. I can go do it differently. I can go do it the way it needs to be done going forward. So I can go clean house. Or if I'm anybody in this industry, I would be looking at, I have 40% of the workforce. Almost half of everybody on that job site, they're going to be gone in a decade. That's a massive opportunity. That is a massive opportunity to move faster and to make yourself way more valuable than ever before. So I would be working like crazy right now to build up my skills, to create extraordinary value for wherever I was. Because when that happens, I am going to be front and center in taking advantage of that opportunity. Anybody can win here. It's just a matter of if you have that optimistic mindset. You can either look at this as like, oh, this sucks. Or you can look at it like, okay, all right, yeah, this is going to require some things to be different, but this is a huge opportunity, and we should treat it as such.
I love that perspective. At the end of the day, it's, you can either see it, like you said, as a curse, or if we solve this problem better than anybody else, imagine what our company could be, and imagine what we could do for our communities, for the people that work with us. It's just such a huge opportunity. And I think if more people listen to this, take it in that perspective of it being an opportunity and focusing on this issue or challenge or opportunity like it's a top priority and like we need to solve it in a very rapid time period. And if we do, then we could potentially be winning the race. I think that perspective is just huge. And seeing more companies be able to focus on that will be just game changing for the industry.
Absolutely.
Love it. Well, it's been a true pleasure to have you on the show. I always like to wrap up with the question of what advice would you like to give to someone who'd love to be in your shoes someday? Being an entrepreneur isn't for everybody, right? It's definitely a path with ups and downs, trials and tribulations, learning, overcoming challenges. But what advice would you give for someone who would like to be in your shoes one day?
I just gave this advice on social media. It's targeted to people in their 20s because I'm in my 20s. I'm 28 now, so I wouldn't say I'm qualified to talk to people in their 20s, but I have some 20s experience. That's where it ends. It makes me really sad to see people in their 20s playing it safe. And there's a bunch of different ways that they can play it safe. But they're so concerned about their career trajectory, their salary, this and that. And I get it. If you have 3 young kids at home at 23 years old, understood, check. Like, and even that's not an excuse, but I kind of get, all right, yeah, I'm going to play this safe for a little bit. I need to figure this out before I can go do something else. But if you don't have something, anything to support, which is most people in their 20s, go out and try something. That doesn't mean starting a business. That means moving somewhere different, trying something different. This company just sucks, dude. But I'm making really good money. Go to another company. Oh, and maybe you're going to make $10,000 less. Okay. So like, just try something, just do something, just take some level of risk because it's such a beautiful time in your life. You have the ability, the pen is in your hand to write your own damn story. So take advantage of it. Don't give it to somebody else. If you give it to somebody else by not taking that risk, now they're going to go write your damn story for you. And that sucks. That makes me just super bummed out to think about. So if you have that opportunity to write your own story in whatever way it is, take advantage of it because it's not going to be there forever.
Love that. It reminds me of a quote, something along the lines of, the one biggest fear that I've had in my life is going all the way to the end of my life and meeting some person random who you end up looking up to and realizing that was the person you could have been. And you just didn't achieve your full potential, but this person was you. They were the same person as you, and it's who you could have been, but you just didn't because, for example, didn't take the risk, didn't bet on yourself, didn't believe in yourself, didn't take the action you're supposed to take, or you could feel inside that you're supposed to take for some people. I just think it's such a powerful topic to talk about. I personally really love what you say about not playing it safe. I've been lucky. I've had the opportunity to be able to not play it safe and just try different things throughout my career, travel the world. I work sometimes from Costa Rica as an example. And basically, long story short, I just think that what you're saying, so many people talk about what they can't do. But again, I think it goes back to perspective. It's like you probably could do it if you found a way to make what you're looking to do achievable. It's just the way you're viewing your life, the way you're viewing your limitations that are a lot of times invisible for people are just not allowing you to do what you ideally love to do in your dream life. So super powerful stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate having you on the show, Aaron. Total gem today. Super, super valuable episode. And just wanted to say thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me. I enjoyed it.